Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. And as we delve into this week's topic, a reminder that some of the content may be of a sensitive nature. Now, here's your host, Des Kennedy.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this week's Momentum. It is Tim and Des with you once again. Des, nice to have you with me, my friend. How are you?
I'm really good, man. It's really great to be here once again on Momentum.
MomentumAustralia.org, by the way, is our website. We'd love you to check out the website. Previous episodes of the show will be there. And, of course, you can find out a bit more about Momentum, why we exist, what we aim to do. And we are a not-for-profit, so if you'd like to put a few dollars into seeing Momentum continue, that would be much appreciated. MomentumAustralia.org. So each week here on Momentum, we explore a topic with a special guest, and I am super excited about this week, Des. I mean, I'm excited most weeks, but this week I'm very, very excited because this man that we're going to speak to has so much wealth that we can glean from. His name is Nicholas Marks, and Nick is the CEO of AIFC, the Australian Institute of Family Counselling. He joins us to tell us a bit more about himself, his journey into counselling. We're going to explore some of the reasons too why he thinks it's so important to consider men particularly going to a counsellor if they don't already, what are the benefits of that, and some of the fears that we have around that as men. Nick, it is absolutely awesome to have you on the show, mate. Welcome.
Hi, Tim, and thank you for having me. It's great to be here and join you and Des today.
That's great.
And look, we just want to, set off and get straight out of the traps by saying, I know that you have a real heart for men. And, you have a real desire to help men and see them succeed and get through their stuff. Let's talk a bit more about yourself, and then we can find out a bit more about where that heart's come from. So, Nick, tell us a bit more about your upbringing, your background, your faith journey. Are you married? You have kids? Paint us a bit of a picture of who Nicholas Marks is.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll try and do the headlines. I was actually born in the UK. You wouldn't hear that in my accent. I was only there for 10 weeks. I was born down in the city of Bath, down in the southwest of England. And my mum was English and my dad was Australian, chasing her around the world. And she eventually, after a number of years, said yes. And they were together and then had a bunch of kids there and then came back to Australia, to the beautiful south coast of New South Wales, where I was raised. South of Wollongong, if people know that area.
Yes.
And went to school and life and uni down there. And I was in my early 20s, I think, and just started asking some big questions, I suppose. I saw some guys in my friendship group who weren't doing well, and some guys about 10 years down the track, I suppose, who were kind of up to the same things we were up to at the time. And I looked ahead, they were tracking so well, and I sort of realised I needed to make some changes in my life, and that one thing led to another, started asking some of those bigger questions.
So tell us about the experience of actually finding faith. How did that happen for you?
I think with God finding me is you learn as you get older.
Yeah, that's great, yeah, exactly.
You think who am I and what am I doing? And there were things happening around me that sort of were prompting me to ask those questions. And I've been married to Michelle for nearly 25 years. I feel old when you say that.
Yeah.
And I've got some kids who are in their early 20s. And they're great, and they're out sort of doing their thing now. We've also been foster parents.
All right.
And just love sort of speaking into people's lives. We've had a lot of people speak into our lives over the years, and that really gave me a heart for thinking, you know what, I need to be doing this myself.
Yeah.
And so that's.
So you mentioned that you have been married for 25 years. You've got kids who are in their 20s. Let's ask, it's a big question, but what then, when you look back over that period of time as a man, as a husband, and as a dad, what's been some of the things that you would say that you've struggled with, wrestled with, felt like you haven't had a handle on over that time?
What? You guys are really, really. What comes to mind, I think, just going back, is, and standing now, looking back, is probably just not knowing stuff that would have been really handy to know. That's a big deal. It's passed on. As I mentioned, hey mate, this is how I can work with girls and working and making money and kind of relationships and friendships and, I suppose to put some other words around that's being called out into manhood.
Yes.
And I know it'd be resonating with a number of blokes out there that, and it's not having a shot at, your old man or your parents or anything. It's just, you can't give what you don't have. So if that wasn't passed on, you've then got to make it up as you go.
Yeah.
Or try and glean it off other men, or just make mistakes and go, oh, okay, that didn't work. I won't do that again. And hope that those mistakes aren't sort of
catastrophic.
Well, it's really interesting. And what you just hinted on is the need for men to get around other men. And certainly in a momentum context, we find so many broken men. And one of the key things we aim to let them do or encourage them to do is find a couple of buddies who are in the same journey, who are struggling with the same sort of things even, but maybe a bit further down the track, or just somebody just to be open and honest with. And men are not good at being open and honest about what they're struggling with internally. And so, that's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds simple, but it's simple and hard to do at one level, isn't it? Because it means taking a step. So there's a real step there of going, I'm going to have to take some initiative here, which I think can be a really good trait for us as men. It's something I think wired into us as men of taking initiative.
Yeah.
And when it comes to ourselves, not so much, is I need to take initiative for myself here. And as you said, get other men in my life that can speak into my life and I can speak into theirs. Because it's not just that we as men are missing out on what they have to say or just being in our life. They're actually missing out on you.
Yes. Yes. Good point.
As well. Yeah. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah,
so I heartily agree. So having trusted other, brothers in your life that you can just do life with and talk to and reach out to when maybe things aren't going great or things are going great is such a blessing. And but it requires a degree of intentionality to make it happen.
And having that relationship when things are good sets a basis for the relationship when things start to go sour, whatever that is. Right. So you just don't go to somebody when you're broken and you try to find somebody. That's very hard to do. But if you've got friendships already, and so if any man's listening and, who knows what the future holds, but, find good friends now. Don't leave it until you're struggling. Find them now.
When stuff comes up, let's be honest, we like to be there as a mate and we want to sit and help. But there's often things that for a lot of us, we feel unequipped to sit in a space with. So if someone comes to us as a friend and says, look, I'm struggling here, it's like, I can be a support to you, but I don't have the keys and the tools to help you. You might need to go and see a professional. So as you can tell, I'm leading into the counseling space here. And for a lot of guys, we tend to shy away from that. Now, I was that person up until 38, and then my world I had a light glow moment around some of my backstory, and I delved into counseling because I wanted to get it fixed. Now, for those guys listening right now who go, I can see that. I've got some stuff I did, but this counseling thing scares me. It's emotions and feelings and vulnerability and all these things that as men we don't tend to do well. Paint a pictures for us, Nick, about your experience with that and what you would say to encourage guys to step into that space.
A good question to ask yourself is, just to jump back to that one, is who's speaking into my life and whose life am I speaking into, so that it goes sort of in every direction, up and down, if you like. So some of the who are head speaking into my life, and they can be older and younger people as well, because you can learn things from younger people, and whose life am I speaking into. And so there's that discipleship and just gleaning up other men, and it's iron sharpens iron. The other part of that you were talking about in terms of the counselling side, I think is, and Des's comment about being there together in the good times, it's really, if you like, puts deposits in the bank for if things go south, to call on is just, that's gold. And when, not if, things go south at different times in our life. Definitely those close inner circle of men in your life might be 1, 2 or 3 guys. So it's not like you need to have 10. Jesus had the 3 and the 12 and so on and so forth. So I think there's going to be those close guys that you can pretty much, and it takes time. Can I talk to them about anything? Where it's just like, whatever comes up, I know I could go to them? Or if the answer is no, it's okay, how can I build that relationship with my mates, with the right ones, safe ones, trusted ones, the inner circle to get it to that point. And I think then beyond that, there's times where things happen in our life where, and us being mates to other guys, and sometimes it's not having all the answers, it's just being present and being quiet. Say, hey mate, I don't know what to say to you right now, but I'm just here for you. That's huge. Us guys tend to not do relationships as well, and can kind of think we can fly solo, and I'll just try harder and push through this, and I'll get there. And eventually you realise, well, that works until it doesn't. And so that for me was really important, where I went and saw a counsellor and thought, oh wow, this is actually really helpful. It brought some stuff out into the light, and let's just say I came out a lot lighter than I went in.
Yeah.
And a number of sessions, I wasn't there for like a year, but a number of sessions.
Yeah. I'm going to set this up for the second half of the show. We're going to come back in a minute, because I think one of the things that men particularly struggle with that, and I'm talking, particularly from a sexual perspective here, is shame. And shame around that, and shame around this feeling that, I'm in my mid-30s, I don't feel like a man. I still feel like a boy in a man's body. And I want to come back and talk about this idea of shame, but also linking that into a recent podcast that you did at AIFC around shame and the stories that we tell ourselves, because I think this is going to be really helpful for men when we come back to explore that space. We're chatting with Nicholas Marks. Nick is the CEO of AIFC. We're going to take a short break and come back and explore that in the second half of the show. In the meantime, love you to explore the website while we take a short break. MomentumAustralia.org is the website. Find out a bit more about Momentum, what we do, what we aim to do, and you can check out previous episodes of the show as well. But stay tuned for part 2 with Nicholas Marks in just a moment, right here at Momentum.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at MomentumAustralia.org.
If this program has highlighted something you'd like prayer for, we'd love to pray for you. Call 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. It's a free call. Or text 0401 132 888.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at MomentumAustralia.org.
Welcome back to this week's Momentum. Tim and Des with you, and our special guest this week is Nicholas Marks. Nick is the CEO of AIFC, the Australian Institute of Family Counselling. We've talked a bit about Nick's backstory in the first part of the show, and we're leading into this sense of men being vulnerable, being intentional with stepping out, finding other men to have conversations with, maybe getting some counselling. And some of the things that can stop us from doing that. And Nick, we mentioned in the first part of the show that for a lot of us, we resist going or reaching out to people for help or a counseling session, for example, and yet we find that space, we step into that space, we suddenly realize that it was really helpful for us. And I think one of the things that we struggle with this as men is shame. Shame around perhaps that we're not where we want to be in life. Shame where we feel like we might still, as you and I have expressed, feel like we're an adult, but we still feel like a boy in many streams of our lives. And the shame around perhaps our sexuality, or we're not handling this well, or I'm not providing for my family well, or this thing. So I know that you guys at AIFC, you've just done a podcast called Shame and the Stories We Tell Ourselves. If you want to check that out after the show, go to the aifc.com.au website. The podcast is titled Cancel Culture, and the show is Shame and the Stories We Tell Ourselves. So I encourage you to check that out afterwards. But let's unpack that a little bit, and I suppose start by exploring what is shame. When we feel shame, for whatever reason, what's actually happening for us in our body?
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for the plug.
The invoice will appear shortly.
In the mail. Yeah, same. It is common to all of us. I think that's important to say that. We go right back to the beginning, literally at the beginning, or should I say the fall, and after the fall. We see it in our first ancestors, and Adam and Eve were ashamed, and then they covered themselves and hid from God because of their shame. So it's almost something that we inherit, if you like, but may not be aware of it. So there's some common ancestry there. It's quite deceptive, and it can be this hidden thing that can sneak up and jump on you. It's a belief that we have, or our response to something, that we aren't enough as a person, or in a situation that we might find ourselves in, that, well, I can't do that because of this, and therefore I feel this about myself, that I'm exposed or seen for what I think I am, then that will be so very bad, to the point where I just think I'll die or I won't recover from. If people know what I'm really like or what I've done, then they wouldn't like me or want to have anything to do with me, that sort of thinking. And that's where shame comes in and creeps up on us and tries to attach itself to our identity, in the sense of not just I've done this and therefore I don't think I have what it takes, which is a very big thing as a man, as a guy. One of the key questions we ask ourselves, I think, is, do I have what it takes? And so shame will come in and say, well, no, you don't. And therefore you need to hide and go solo, which is something us guys tend to do more
Generally
of.
what we do. Yeah.
And we all, we retreat, hide, withdraw, go solo, and then we can put in place these coping mechanisms to then get by. We think we've got to get by. I've got to sort of have that outward appearance, and that I've got it together, and I'm, delivering and providing and doing all the things that I should be doing. And so we end up really creating this sense of a false self.
Yes.
And these coping mechanisms, which can end up actually becoming self-medicating. And by that I don't just mean taking pills. It could be that I take pills. It could be porn, or it could be that I drink more. It could be that I'm a workaholic. It could be that I just don't talk about anything that is relational or personal, of any depth. I'll just keep things very surface.
Yeah.
So it's not just the usual suspects, but it can be. But we will put in place coping mechanisms to deal with it.
As a final thought, because we've talked about the positives of finding community and finding connection and finding vulnerability with other men, whoever that may be for you, whether it is a counselor or just a couple of guys you meet in your local church group, whatever it may be. The benefits of that are huge. But for a lot of men, let's be honest, the stumbling block is that initial, I'm going to be vulnerable. What would you say to encourage them to go, have the conversation, find a safe place? How do we present as a safe person to others, and how do we find those safe places in men so that we can at least start the journey?
I think if you can think about the men that you know, so speaking to your listeners, and the men that you know and who are trusted, particularly if they share your beliefs. And so if we're talking about men within in Christian circles as believers, I think that's really important, because what you have as you hold most dear to you is you've got that starting point that you can share, because that can then become, that's a big part of it. I think if we're people of faith and we're carrying shame and dealing with these things, that's part of what can hold us back. Is, I can't talk to him because this isn't how you should be, and this is, the Bible says, and I've done this, and so I think if you can have someone that you can sit down and think of, or someone that you've just spoken to, if they don't come to mind, that you've just felt relaxed around, you've got some rapport with, and it's kind of just a connection or a chemistry with, where it's just, I can just chat to Des. He's just really relaxed, and I just feel more myself when I'm chatting. So that sort of thing is a good telltale. And also pray about it. Pray and ask God, can you bring someone into I really believe this, can you bring someone into my life that I can talk to? I need to take this out and get this out.
Yeah. Great final thoughts there, Nick. Love that. Our special guest has been Nicholas Marks. Nick is the CEO of AIFC, Australian Institute of Family Counselling. Their website, aifc.com.au. aafc.com.au. And from there, you can access their recent podcast. It's the Cancel Culture is the podcast. And we talked about their recent show, Shame and the Stories We Tell Ourselves. Again, you can go to the website and access the podcast there and have a listen to that more in a bit more in depth. Nick, been a great pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time and your wisdom and your input.
Oh, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Des. It's been a real pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
And in the meantime, I encourage you to check out our website, momentumaustralia.org. You can rehear this show and also previous shows of Momentum. And again, we are a not-for-profit organisation. We'd love to have some dollars so we can continue to do Momentum and encourage men all around the nation. momentumaustralia.org, the website. I'd love you to check out the website for more details. Des, been a pleasure. We'll catch you next time on Momentum.
As always, indeed.
You've been listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. For more information or to hear this week's show again, go to momentumaustralia.org. You can also access a whole range of resources to help you on your journey and to get in touch with the team at momentumaustralia.org.